This is a quick guide to the 3 different wellbeing metrics that we use on the Be Well neighbourhood data dashboard. I'm going to start by selecting an outcome. So we're going to look at negative affect. So this is our measure of the extent to which young people experience feelings of sadness and worry and so on. 3 different metrics you can choose from here: raw score, context adjusted score and elevated need. Raw score is basically just the kind of standard score for the measure. So if we scroll down, we can see a little bit of information about the measure. It tells us that this measure possible scores range from 0 to 20, with higher scores indicating higher levels of negative affect. So the raw score is basically just the score from 0 to 20. No transformations applied. If we select context adjusted score, this is a way in which we've transformed the data for this particular measure to take account of the fact that the different neighbourhoods across Greater Manchester have different compositions in terms of socio-demographic features, things like ethnicity, free school meal eligibility and so on. So this is just a score that takes account of those underpinning features of the neighbourhood. And what you'll see as I toggle between raw score and context adjusted score is that the map updates. As we go back and forth, you can see this particular neighbourhood, when we look at raw score, it's in the amber range, but when we look at context adjusted score, it's red. So this particular metric is useful if you're interested in looking at wellbeing across Greater Manchester, taking account of the fact that the different neighbourhoods have different socio-demographic characteristics. The final metric that I'll show you is elevated need. So for elevated need, this is a measure that looks at the proportion of young people with unusually high or unusually low scores. What we define as unusually high or unusually low is anything that is more than a standard deviation above the average for GM. When it's a difficulties or a negative measure, something like negative affect, it's the proportion of young people who have an unusually high score, so very high levels of negative affect. When it's a positive measure, something like, say, psychological well-being, it's the proportion of young people who have an unusually low score. So this is a really good metric for exploring neighbourhoods where there are higher levels of need in terms of targeting resources and so on. If you want more details about the metrics that are available, you can click here and it takes you back to the text guide to the dashboard and gives you a little bit more information about the 3 different metrics that I've just introduced.